Hi, everybody. This is Bob Braudrick. This is number 8. I had a section of notes left over from last week that I was planning to do, and somehow in cleaning the office, they've gotten lost. So we're going to do one I was planning to do in a couple weeks, kind of impromptu. As for you, Richard Yeager, I know you hate it when I take a drink of coffee during these. I'm hoping to get people at the table involved, so we have a little handheld mic, and we're going to pass around a little bit, but you never know when people are going to say something and when they're absolutely unwilling to, so we'll see how it flows. There is an old phrase: everyone who has any interest in sales or likes cool movies or whatever, if you've just been in business a little while, you have heard the phrase ABC. And you know the acronym it supposedly stands for. Always be closing. I have heard this my whole life. Extremely famous movie called Glengarry Glen Ross. By the way, it's a horrible movie. I'm not advising you. It's just terrible, isn't it? Thank you. But it has one famous scene. Now, if you are a fan of Saturday Night Live, there is a scene where, what's the actor's name? Sweaty Balls guy. Alec Baldwin does the bit, because he comes into Glengarry Glen Ross, does this one little bit, which is what made the movie famous, and he parodies it in a Saturday Night Live bit where the elves are there and that's better. You will learn everything it has to teach. It's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. You're going to hear the phrase in other movies as well. You've heard it from famous sales trainers and yada, 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 yada. The problem with it is I always would hear it. I'd always agree with it. I'd always mantra it off with everybody else. My problem is I never got what the friggin' heck it meant. Always be closing. Yeah, you bet. Go team. Ah, America. Always be closing. What the frick? It's like for your average Christian. The Trinity. It's what separates us. It's why we're Christians. It's why we're not Muslims or blah, 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 blah. Excellent. Can you explain the Trinity? That confuses me. Shut up and leave me alone. Burn him at the stake. As most of us have not bothered to research and to try to understand it. Yet, and I'm getting lost here, that is the separation of Protestant and even Catholic Christianity from all other sects. Belief in the Trinity is the major point of their theology. Not understanding it puts you at a major disadvantage. I find it shocking the church so rarely tries to. It is freakishly complicated. Likewise, this, and I'm not going sacrilegious here, I'm not trying to overstate, Trinity, I'm going to quit now before I go that route. This is ours. This is our thing. That is the core of being able to sell. The core problem is nobody ever teaches what always be closing means. So, before I get too arrogant, I'm going to ask if anybody is willing to say what they think always be closing means. Lydia? Here, hand of the mic. You can be wrong. I want to pre-warn everyone out there, there is not a right answer to this. That's why it is so rarely dealt with.
Well, I guess always be closing would mean just always finding ways to get your point across to the client and help them to understand, to move forward.
I was thinking the awareness of the opportunity that when it opens itself up, that it's time to get the signature on the paper. Because once that signature's there is a commitment that can be grown. And if you don't get it when the opportunity's right, you might not ever get that opportunity again.
I'd agree with that as well. Justin?
My thought of always be closing is very simple. Closing the deal. At the very end, always have a closing and make the customer happy at the end of the day. Close the deal.
I guess my idea of it would be from the very start of the conversation all the way to the end, you're always closing the deal, always finding those opportunities to make them agree with you that this is the best deal out there for them. Always. Not just at the end of the conversation, all right, are you ready to sign it now? Always be closing throughout the deal.
I would say that I think it's a little bit more than just closing the deal, but it's selling. You're constantly selling. So you're selling yourself, you're selling your product, you're selling your image. So it's finding those opportunities to sell yourself and close it along the way.
Okay. Everyone was right. Not a single person was wrong. And the quirk to that is there's a lot of different truths to that phrase. I wanted to step out a moment. I think I've actually used this. I'm going to work real hard not to use profanity, though profanity is desperately called for in this imagery. Every male I've ever worked with in sales, teaching them to sell, especially young, years ago when we were all young, and sometimes it was just sitting around hanging out and watching them catch it. The day it clicked, I'm ashamed of how all of them, always at one level or another, said the same thing. And it was always, bright-eyed like a kid. Wow, I get math. It's exactly like picking up women. There was always a little more vulgarity to it. But I'm not going to do it here out of respect. And it is. So I wish I knew animation and I could animate. Be funny. Imagine in your mind some guy in a Necru jacket or a disco thing, go Homer Simpson in disco stew coat, whatever, going into a singles bar. If the guy just ran up to the gal and asked, if he hits enough of them, eventually he's going to find somebody lost, drunk, stupid, major enough daddy issues, maybe. But the reality is, if a guy is always closing, you're working it from the second you get in. In other words, it's not just what do I say to the young lady when I approach her in the bar, it's how did she see me when she caught me out of the corner of an eye. Was I selling myself the moment I walked in the door? As I went over and ordered a drink randomly, was I selling myself? As I talked to the previous girl, was I setting myself up in a position where it wasn't embarrassing before I went to this one? Always closing that sale, always working. It is a progression of nonstop sales. When you are working with You Build It and you are actually with the client, I've told a bunch of y'all, I believe there are stages to our sales, but always be closing as relates to us is, am I lining them out? Am I selling them on each further step? How many different sales happen in a presentation?
Endless.
It's an hour-and-a-half presentation. If you wanted to be simplistic, you'd have to say at least 15 to 20. The greeting. You're closing them at that greeting. You're selling at that greeting. If you are selling something, you are closing. If you are not closing that sale, you're not selling squat. Putting juicy fruit out on the counter and making people take it up to the counter and give it to you, that's straight, flat, boring retail. Might as well have a vending machine. There's no sales to it. And actually, you could argue that the placement of it is part of the sales. Did you know people pay to have their stuff put at the front? Did you know that a grocery store does not pay to inventory stuff, but the providers of the materials pay the grocery store for the footage to put their product on their store? And the more they pay, the better placement they get? Why do you think Budweiser is the #1 beer in America? They pay the most. It's not that it's the oldest. It's not that it's the best. I happen to like Budweiser, but it's still not. It's that they are so deep-pocketed and know not to lose their position. They keep paying for the front corner part of the front aisle into a tower. Same with Coke, same with Pepsi. The candy people pay a fortune to put that stuff at the front. Grocery stores don't put magazines at the front because it's a big profit item for them in and of itself, or because they really care about you reading Cosmo. Cosmo's paying them phenomenal money to get their magazine put at the front. Likewise, you're selling every single stage. When you shake a hand, when you greet them at the door, it's a sell. Who's going to close it? what's the old saying, overly simplistic? Every time a presentation made to somebody is sold, either you're sold by the client or you have sold the client, but somebody's getting sold. Is the flow of, how does your house look? How does the front of your office look? Is it closing the sale of professionalism? Does it look like they would want a house to look, or at least like it was done by somebody with the craftsman of that? How did you... I've got the luck of having a microphone, so I'm going to go around for a second. Somebody, Harmony, go ahead and grab it because it's in front of you. If somebody greets you and does a limp handshake, what did they just close you on?
I just perceive him as being weak and not a decision maker and just kind of icky. Just that sweaty palm, just limp handshake, very weak person.
But it was a close. Absolutely, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Justin, if somebody shakes your hand too hard, what did they just sell you on?
He's very overly aggressive. He runs the household possibly. He is firm and very strong on what he says, his way or no way.
Okay. If a woman shakes your hand too hard, Rick, what sell did you take from it? What close?
That she wants control and she's afraid to give it up.
Okay, so simplistic things such as this, a sell happened. Presentation. Lydia, you're sitting there buying a car, and a guy's clothes are out of fashion. What did that say to you?
Signals that he might not be aware of what options are even available to me or what could benefit me, because he's not focusing on himself. He's not keeping up with what's available, so maybe he would be that way with his product also.
So they closed you on something. Now, here's a question. If you are in a sales presentation, I don't care where, and there's a woman doing the sales presentation, and she is looking good. Makeup's perfect. The hair is a $300 cut. She's got the push-up bra and the cleavage down to where you can't miss it, and sexy $1,000 outfit. What did she sell you on?
Image. But it also makes women... But it also... But I think also if you were in that position, you would also be a little uneasy, though, maybe a little insecure.
Okay. And I want joke answers are fine on this one.
What was she selling? And so, because the male is going to buy it.
Is he? He's buying what she's selling. The question is, what did she sell? Did she sell her cleavage, or did she sell her professionalism?
Well, she didn't sell her professionalism, but she used the tools that she had to make the sale.
I get it, but I'd also disagree with it depending on what is being sold. I would make the case that if she is there to sell you a VCR, which, by the way, a lady can't afford to look like that on a VCR, you're probably going to do it. If it's a big ticket item or something that, if it's a doctor that walks in, you might appreciate how you're going to die, but your confidence of living through the procedure went way downhill.
And when my wife is sitting beside me, that salesperson just lost the sale.
Thank you. And that, Harmony, what does it say to a woman in a professional environment if that is the case?
Well, I wouldn't take her serious. Honestly, I would think this woman's high maintenance. She's trashy. I mean, just, you know, whenever we're trying to buy, it's an image of trust. You want to trust that person. I wouldn't trust that person at all, and I certainly wouldn't want my husband around her. Or, you know, just the whole professionalism of it just wouldn't go over well with me.
Same lines. Guy. And he's wearing his super slick $300 silk shirt with the cuffs that come down to here and are popped up and turned up on this. And he's got the big broad collar that's ironed out. And he's wearing his fancy Lucky or whatever brand of jeans, and they're starched with the crease, and his $300 whatever shoes, and his $150 Cole Haan belt. What's he pitching you?
He's probably trying to come across as being professional and successful because he has the money to buy those things. I do think you need to dress the part, but that's probably going overboard. And unless you're Dr. 90210, it just doesn't really work.
Yeah, because again, you're always closing, and you are closing someone. I'm a little bit lost here because at this level, I'm kind of stating you're always closing whether you want to or not. And that is one of the places where we struggle with this concept and people get lost. Like it or not, you are always closing whether you want to or not. Even if what you're selling is, I'm a sissy, I'm a weak, and I don't know how to go for it, they're buying it. Now, from the standpoint of how we're supposed to be doing this, and I need to not get lost on track too much, always be closing is you're always progressing the person towards a sell. So we walk in. Is our place professional? Is it closing them on that look? How did I greet them? How do I look? It matters huge. I'll give you an example. I'm lazy. I like to have my shirt untucked. I got a gut. My shirt's going to come untucked at some level anyway. I get sick of having to tuck it back in my britches, so I walk around with my shirt untucked. If I know a client's coming in, do you think I'll leave my shirt untucked? No. It makes a statement of disrespect. So I'm going to press it up and I'm going to look good. When I shake their hand, I am going to shake their hand in a manner that is strong and firm. I am going to smile and I'm going to be friendly, but I'm not going to dominate it. If it is somebody whose handshake is soft, I'm going to go just a 1 degree firmer handshake than theirs. If it is somebody whose handshake is very strong, I'm going to attempt to go 1 degree firmer than theirs. I'm getting older. I can't do it as well as I used to. That is kind of the goal. But then we're getting into closing. What am I hearing from them? Am I letting them go? Always be closing when you are talking is largely listening. We all think that closing is an active verb. Sometimes it is a passive verb. Am I listening to them? What are they telling me? How can I use that to close them? I get somebody, grab the mic because I'm going to want you to answer this in a moment. I get somebody and I've asked them a question and they start flowing with it. And I realize that somewhere something emotional is going on because they got a story they want to tell. By the way, side note, good golly, we've got to do a class on body language. People's bodies give off so much information. There's so much to see. You ask somebody a question and they start to just emote an emotion as relates to it. Let that plan out. Don't stop that. Let it go unless you think it's going a dark place. If you ask the question and you can see the husband starts to tighten up and the wife kind of gets an edge look to him and she says something, you're like, holy cow, this is going down a fight area. Time to close literally that one and take it somewhere else as gently as you can. However, if it's showing an emotional question and you follow it up and they keep going, what did you learn and how does that affect a close? And if I put you on the spot too much, forgive me, I'll try to fix it.
Okay, fix it.
Okay. I'm talking to Lydia, and she's got kids. She doesn't really yet, but still. And we're doing a presentation. And I ask her about, okay, so now do schools matter? And where are we looking for land? Is schools going to matter? Okay. And I go, now, how many kids do you have? And she gives that classic mother thing, which this one's very, very easy, by the way. It should be part of your flow. And it's just kind of a warming, a little bit of settling back, a little bit of resting the lower back. Shoulders widen a little bit. The hands will almost go into a hug feel. It's very subtle, but it's kind of that. And a little bit of a glow is going to come. I am hearing, I love my children. What I'm doing is for my children. She wants to tell me about her children. Here's a psychological fact, rabbit hole for a moment. People by nature, this cannot be changed, all of us, including myself, are the same way, love themselves. Regardless of how altruistic you wish to be, ultimately you can only perceive reality from within your own skin. You are incapable of truly in great depth experiencing other than from a heart of love for somebody else's life. You can only experience yours. You will protect that. You will love yourself. The extent to which you love and care about somebody else is directly relevant to the extent you love and care about yourself. It is very common for people to develop a bad view of themselves. Thus, they seek their love of self through a continuation of another form. The greatest of that is our children. I have made mistakes in my life. I have failed in my life, but I want my name to continue. By the way, a Great Dale Carnegie class for another day is the importance of somebody's named self. I want that legacy to go on. I want to be worth something. I have developed such a bad opinion of myself that I no longer have belief in mine. However, my son, my daughter can save me. They are a part of me. They're an extension of me. They, through my blood, will continue to pass that on for me. I can put faith in them. Thus, I love my child more than me because they are my last hope for myself. Very, very, very common thing. Knowing that, it is easier to guide someone where you would have them be through love of child than love of their own goals, because the goal for the child is deeper. They have given it a deeper root. Lydia, in this case, has already given up on herself at a deep subconscious psychological level. Her higher hope is for her children, thus love for children is deeper than love of self, because that is the deeper love of self. It is where she feels hope. She has given me that through this little image. I want her to roll on about her children. She starts telling me, well, Jimmy's, and here's the funny thing, they're going to tell you their worries too. Because if you've done it right, if you have closed them, if you have sold them in these stages, you're like a priest or a therapist. They're already trusting me. So she starts going, it's, oh, Jimmy's great at football. If it's all positive, great. But usually they'll throw you one kid with a negative. Well, Sally's a little bit struggling in school, so we really want to be in Deer Creek because I have a really great program. Fantastic. My close on you is we got to lock that down. So where I've just learned is we want Billy to be there. The kids matter, but Sally is my heart. Sally is my fear. Sally is my insecurity. Can you close the door on that insecurity for me? And if you can, this is a done deal. Because my deepest fear, my greatest feel of love is my insecurity for Sally. If you can give me security on that, if you can close that door, we're good to go. She just gave me a path. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at her and go, man, that's fantastic. Now, okay, now do you have a floor plan at all? What are we thinking for? And I happen to, somehow I have to guide this in and close the security for Sally. Be it learning about the room and discussing the warmth and how that's going to be protected, how it's going to set. Be it something I randomly know about that school district so I can anchor that in. If I can just make it up, some story I've heard. In this case, Deer Creek. I happen to have a friend, my wife's best friend is one of the teachers there and has a child in a special needs group. They specialize in that. Now, that's a side note, but I know that she teaches the second grade, and there is no greater place. The cool thing about it is there's no school district in the state that allows the level of parental involvement. The extent you want to be cool, the extent you don't cool, but you are always going to be integrally involved. The teachers are going to communicate with you personally to know that. It may be a struggle to find land where you want to be in that school district at the price we need to fit, but we're going to save you enough money on this house to enable us to do so. And you are going to, unbelievable how much Sally is going to shine and bloom in that fantastic school system. Closed. And I just made myself necessary because I'm the only way she can afford the land. She gave me a path. I took the close. I can't stop there. You can't throw that contract out. So now we got to move on to the next one because there's a whole lot of aspects. Again, always be closing. I just got her. She needs me now. Now we got to make the aspect work. Here's another close. Everyone knows this. I've gone over the triangle with y'all if any of y'all have watched these all the way. The fact that she's closed doesn't mean she's bought the right thing. We have too many aspects. Great. Super, Bob. Give me the land I want, the 5 acres exactly where I want to be. Give me the house exactly what I want on the floor plan. Give me everything I want in it and give me the price I want it to be at. I've got this one. Now I got to start selling her on trusting me to help her design the house. Is it going to be shaped in a way that's going to be affordable? I got to sell her on who's going to do the work, because I got to control that aspect. I'd love to give it the guy that's easy, but he charges twice as much. I got to go with the cheaper guy because it's the only way we can do her price. I got to sell her on letting me guide her on what materials are going to go in the house, and keeping a footage on that gets me where when she freaks out because she's absolutely not getting what she wants, she has enough of an emotional tie to me that I can come back and get her to listen to me again. I've got to sell her that when we are 3/4 of the way through construction and she has lost control of budget and things are spinning out of control and she's just going crazy and she's going to lose the dream for Sally and everything else, to come back, talk to me, calm down, and get it there. That is not done by saying, you build it's the best price. That is not done by saying, here's the home you can buy for your money. That is not done by having a spec home sitting out somewhere and saying, pick your colors, pick your countertop, this is what's going in. That's all phenomenal. That is not what we do. That is not sales, and that is not always be closing. Always be closing is constantly tying someone to it. It's everything every one of these people said earlier. It's everything you wanted to say if you'd had the microphone. It's all true. But it is a number of stacked sales you're looking at. It's not the end. And here's the other thing. Here's the quirk. When they sign the contract, it wasn't the last sale you got to make. You have to keep closing all the way. The difference is this, and then I'm going to see if anybody else has something else they want to add. Otherwise, I'll probably run to the end of this. This is sales. This is persuasion. This is guiding people. You can't just pitch. You have to close. You have to make sure they followed it. If I look at you, and if I can get this tied together now, I'm going to. You're in my office, and I tell you, you build is fantastic. You're going to have the ability to be in control of your own project and say what you want to have in the house, and you're going to pay cost for it.
No, not really.
So, what do I have to do to make sure you get that? Because otherwise, it's just a brochure.
Examples. You could show some past stuff that you've completed and show that it was actually done. You could tell us how you can, how you can get it done instead of just yes, you can do it.
Okay. How do you know when a client has gotten the concept of control relative to savings and not an overload of work, and know when to move on?
Several things. I mean, like you talked about their body language. They start using ownership words. They, lean into their floor plan. They start talking about it. Well, okay, now we're going to build this plan, and well, this is what we're going to do here, and this property here. I mean, they use the ownership words. You know that they're there. They're touching the book. They're talking about it. You can absolutely tell that they've bought into it at that time.
And thus we have, and this is a place to get lost in another day, another way, we have closed them on that concept. If you do not close them on the stages of the concept, don't move on. If we're going to use the example of the flip chart, and I don't even know the extent y'all really use it, I use the heck out of it, you don't turn the page till you've sold the page you're on. If you're flowing and you're closing like this and you know you pre-closed the next 3 pages, it's okay to go with those and then just fly through those pages and get to the next one. But never go to the next one until you sold the one you're on. There's a reason for the structure of it. Somebody buying the concept of construction doesn't matter if they haven't bought the concept of planning. Not the way we work. Anything else you want to add?
Not necessarily anything I can think of.
Anybody have any questions? It's probably too long already, so we can go on. Okay. I'm going to reiterate again. I'm going to say it in a different way again, because again, there's not a right or a wrong answer. Always be closing. You know what? I'm even going to change it to this. My One of the things driving me crazy about teaching drive, which, by the way, I think I've scared the kid off of driving. I've so terrorized him on learning because he scares me to death. The hardest thing to get him to do is to be aware, to focus high, to not over-focus on little things, but make sure you're aware. You can't look exactly 5 feet in front of you where you want to be right now. You got to aim high if you're going to go straight. You got to know what's in your rear view. You got to know what's in your side views. Every now and then you got to glance around and see what's coming. You have to be aware of the turn you're going to make in advance. Sales and closing is the same thing. You've got to be aware. You got to look for the opportunity, and you have to close the opportunity that is there. You can't just be tunnel focused. Well, great, this person came to see me. They want to build a house, and this costs to build it. No. You are always closing. You're always aware of what is around. What are their side goals? What is their main motivation? What is their secondary motivation? And are you closing them that you know how to handle it? Here's the thing. Make sure you can. And if you can't, learn how. Or hire somebody that can. But make sure you can. Always aware, always finding the opportunity, and always closing, and always binding them to you. I get intrigued, jokingly, by a lot of guys talking about second marriage is the good one. You know why usually? And I'm guilty of this. First marriage, you didn't pay attention to constantly nurturing. You weren't constantly closing on binding your wife to you, closing yourself on binding yourself to her. By the second one, you got out with anger, you got hurt, you were actually very lonely and sad for a while, you found somebody else and you learned this ain't all about me. It's about them. I'm going to follow her. I'm going to watch her needs. I'm going to close her. I want to make sure she stays tied to me. I'm even going to mention some of the nice things I do, and I'm going to do nice things that didn't come up. And I'm also going to make sure that I am closing myself. I'm following her needs, and I'm going to find out how to meet those. Always be closing as a lifestyle. Are you a selfish, turned inward, single-minded, focused, immature person? Or are you a broad, wise, experienced, been kicked to the curb and brought back kind of person? And how are you reacting with that? That is what, to me, encompasses always be closing, and you have to always be doing so. Any final questions at all? All right. Thank y'all for watching.